A few weeks back, I bought this old hybrid bike. It's a Jamis Coda Comp from 2008, and honestly, it's been a little neglected over the years. My plan for this bike is to give it a very light makeover and turn it into a kind of all-rounder that is fairly quick on roads but can also handle light off-roading. I'm going for a kind of comfortable jack-of-all-trades bike that suits my style of riding. I'm not going for a total rebuild, just a few useful tweaks based on what I have in the parts bin. First, I want to talk about why I bought this bike in the first place. These types of older hybrid bikes are very easy to find and don't cost a lot of money in my area. Some have very cheap high-10 steel or aluminum frames that are set up with lots of low-quality entry-level components. Those bikes are not really worth rebuilding in my opinion, but this one is actually a lot nicer. The first thing I like about this bike is the frame uses brand name Reynolds chromoly steel tubing. It's one of the lower end offerings from Reynolds, but a million times better than the high tensile steel or some chunky aluminum that other frames come with. The second thing that interested me about this bike is the fork. It's a carbon fork with these mid-blade braze-ons, and importantly is not cut super short. It almost looks like the previous owner chose not to cut it at all, which is a bit excessive actually, but does allow for a more upright cockpit setup. The third thing I like is this bike uses V-brakes. They are easy to maintain, plenty strong, and allow for a variety of tire sizes to be used. Lastly, the drivetrain components are decent mid-level stuff with a mountain bike Shimano LX rear derailleur, along with a triple crankset and a cassette with decent range on it. These components allow for a pretty wide gearing range, which is my preference for the kind of riding I tend to do. Now let's discuss what I don't like about this bike. First of all, the wheels are mismatched, which is a personal pet peeve of mine. It looks like the rear wheel is original, but the front may have been broken or stolen and the previous owner replaced it. The new front is a decent Mavic wheel, but I'm going to replace these wheels with a matching set because these tires are going to need to be replaced anyway. The current tires are Panaracer Ribmo with a 28mm wide in the rear and a 23mm wide tire in the front. They are decent tires and fairly light, but I strongly prefer tires over 30mm wide for many reasons, including longevity, comfort, handling, likelihood of flats, and the list goes on. Next, the shifter is super gummed up and barely moves. It will either need to be flushed out or replaced. The stem is one of these adjustable height ones, which I think are really kind of silly. This one is made by Ritchie and actually is slightly better designed than many of the others I've seen, but it still has to go. I don't want additional moving parts and extra weight where there doesn't have to be. I can't see why anyone would need to change the angle once they set their bike up anyway. It may be useful as a diagnostic tool to figure out what stem height and angle works best, but it's not even ideal for that because you can't adjust the height and length independently. The stem moves around one pivot, so height and length are always adjusted together. The handlebars on the bike are fine, and I debated leaving them on, but as you'll see, I went with a different direction. These pedals have definitely seen some things, and they're going to need to be replaced. And also, I've already replaced the grips because the old ones were ratty and gross. Last but not least, this bike sports an old school kickstand. I pretty much never keep them on my bikes. I find they're not really worth it when I can just leave my bike on a tree or a wall. Also, the typical ones like this don't work especially well on a heavily loaded down touring bike. That said, I know lots of people, like my friend Gerard for example, love kickstands and find that they make bike touring and bike commuting a lot easier. Stay till the end to find out if the kickstand made the cut. Before making my final decision on what to do with this bike, I gave it a once over to make sure there were no cracks or major problems. I gave the frame a light cleaning and removed some old stickers. I decided to check the chain to see if it needed to be replaced, and to my surprise the chain was not heavily worn. The chain rings and cassette cogs looked pretty good too, so I decided to leave them. It's definitely nicer to have a brand new drivetrain, but it's also wasteful to throw away a chain when it's barely worn. I also got a chance to use my latest piece of equipment, which is this derailleur hanger alignment tool. This is a cheap one I bought from overseas, but it gets the job done, and I found the hanger was actually pretty close to straight. I definitely considered keeping the fork steer super long, but I think the way it is now is too much. Especially because, and this actually surprised me a little bit, the steer is made of carbon. Most manufacturers recommend a max of 35 to 45 mils of spacing under the stem, so I took a small piece off and made it 40 mil. I think even shorter would be better if a lot of weight was going to be placed on the bars, but that's not the setup I'm going for this bike. I opted for a medium length stem with a little rise to replace the adjustable one. For handlebars, I chose these swept back cruiser bars. They're pretty wide and provide plenty of control while also providing a more upright riding position. I had a set of old wheels handy that actually have a similar rim to the one I took off in the front. They are Mavic CXP22s with felt branded hubs. I certainly could have left the old wheels on if I didn't have a matching set waiting to be used for a project, but here we are. Initially, I was going to go for broke with these 44mm wide byway tires, but unfortunately the rear stays were too narrow for a tire this wide. Instead, I went with these 38mm wide tires, which is about as thick as the frame can handle. I cleaned and greased the rear shifter to get it to shift properly and made a few other small adjustments before taking the bike out. So here's the finished product. As you can see, I kept the kickstand, though I keep forgetting about it and leaning on walls anyway. The riding position of the bike is a little more upright than before with the new bars, and the ergonomics of cruiser bars are more comfortable for longer rides in my opinion. The tires are much more comfortable and can handle riding off pavement without being unnecessarily slow on the road. My goal for this build was to make a few incremental improvements to get the bike roadworthy and fun to ride without doing a complete overhaul or having to buy any new parts. I'm happy with how it turned out. This bike has all the brazons needed to set up for touring or bike camping or commuting. It even has brazons for a lowrider rack, but I don't think I've ever seen one set up on a carbon fork. Anyway, that's it for now. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my decisions, and thanks for watching.